All right. Hello. Welcome to Plugin School Model Exploration. For some reason, I have the wrong heading here. My name is Christina LaFay. I'm your host. My wonderful co-host is Tomas. He's here with me every week. Um, I believe Tomas has already given you the link in chat to my YouTube channel, where you can catch the recordings of my past plugin sessions. I'm using a dark theme on my screen, so if your Sudowrite screen does not look like mine, that's perfectly normal. Um, we have an extensive list of large language models currently available to use for Sudowrite plugins, for plugin authors. This is a much longer list than we had in February when I taught this class before. And the models we have, I copied them in the order they are listed from the plugin model drop-down box when you're creating a plugin. And we have GPT 3.5 Turbo 0301, GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is the current default for all plugins. Unless you change it, that's what it's going to use. There's GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K, Mixtral Instruct, Mistral Medium, GPT-4 1106 Preview, GPT-4 Turbo, GPT-4o, GPT-0314, just plain GPT-4, GPT-32K, there's Mancer Weaver, there's Mythomax, there's Open Orca Mistral, there's Open Hermes Mistral, there's Ouroboros, Goliath, Gemini Pro, Claude 2.0, not to be confused with Claude 2, Claude 3 Opus, Claude 3 Sonnet, and Claude 3 Haiku. For the purposes of this class, I asked each LLM the same questions using a plugin that I'll show you, or a variety of plugins that I'll show you how they're set up. I asked each model to extract a list of characters from the text I provided it. I asked it to be a beta reader. The instructions: you're a beta reader who enjoys YA cozy mysteries. Please provide constructive feedback to the author to guide their editing process. Provide 3 ideas for sequels to this short story, and rewrite the ending of the story to be more satisfying for readers of YA cozy mysteries. Each of them ask the models to do pretty kind of different things. They're performing different tasks. There's just extracting characters, then it's asking to read the text and provide feedback to help you with editing. There's brainstorming for sequels and rewriting the end of the story to be more satisfying. Those are some different tasks that I thought would be pretty representative of what we might want to look into to determine what models we prefer to use. There's a lot of data here that I collected, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get deep into it, but I'm going to try to give an overview of each model. If you want, there is a list of all of the plugins that I created for this class. Here. And so I have one of these for every model that you can use to make plugins. And I'll show you essentially what we're doing with them to demonstrate how each model works. I opened up the Gemini one just because it was first, but all the plugin says is here's a passage of text. It pulls in preceding text, It says, here's what the user would like you to do. And it pulls in your highlighted text, and then read the text and do what the user wants you to do. Those are the instructions that I give each of the AI models as listed in the drop-down menu here when you're creating plugins. I should probably show you how to get to that screen if you haven't done it before. So here's the plugin screen, the plugin directory, which you can get to from your homepage or through a project. It's also nice to have it bookmarked so you can easily open it whenever you need. You're going to look for this Create Plugin button right here. Click on that, and it opens the plugin interface. In order to change models that you're using for your plugins, you have to switch from basic to advanced mode, or it's not even going to give you the option. So see all the variables you can use here. It provides some sample instructions, which we don't want to use. I accidentally saved 2 of these plugins today without replacing the text instructions. So we got stuff about fantasy in San Francisco, and that was not what I wanted at all. So the sample prose we gave it was a short story that I have not yet edited. I used Megawrite to write it, but I have not edited it yet. It's called Shirley Locke and the Stolen Protest Signs. It has 2,948 words in total. Depending on the model, it's not going to read back that far because when we give instructions, they'd be at the end of the text and then highlighted in order to show what each model can do with the instructions. So the first one on the list, if it will open, please Sudowrite, please. Here we go. GPT 3.5 Turbo 0301. I'm not sure what the differences between all of these are, but let's close the Gemini one. The description in the plugin drop-down is original Chat GPT model, inexpensive, good at following instructions, and a bit less censored than 3.5 Turbo. Works with up to 3,000 words of input plus output. So that's what we were dealing with as our restrictions for this. And as such, I would have to adjust the maximum word count for preceding text, highlighted text, and maximum output depending on the model. So with those limits in mind, this is the results we got from extracting a list of characters from the text. It used 252 credits, and it didn't do such a hot job. I wouldn't recommend this for extracting a list of characters from your prose because it's not reading back all that far, and it wasn't very intelligent at picking up that the name of the narrator was Shirley, and it left out a number of other characters. For the beta reading, it gave some so-so advice, but I mean, for 306 credits, you could run it 32 times and it would be, it's still not that much, but I wouldn't suggest this for a feedback plugin because it was kind of limited in its suggestions. For sequel ideas, it used 305 credits, and it gave me a couple of different ideas for some possible follow-up stories for my anthology. It's not bad at brainstorming. They're not the most sophisticated suggestions, but you could take it and work with it if you want to use this model for brainstorming, it's inexpensive and not that bad for that. I asked it to rewrite the ending of the story. It cost 311 credits. And it ended with a newfound sense of purpose and camaraderie. They set out to solve this new puzzle together, knowing that no matter what challenges they faced along the way, we got cliches. So probably not going to want to use this model for any rewriting because it's going to bring in all those cliches you probably intentionally pruned out of your prose before, running a plugin on it. You don't want to use that. So for this, I would suggest just using it for brainstorming. For GPT 3.5 Turbo, without the numbers at the end, I asked it to extract a list of characters from the text. It used 36 credits and it only picked out 3 names. It has a context window of a total of 3,000 words of input plus output, so it wasn't reading my entire story. And that not really what you're going to want to do if you need to give it a lot of context. I asked it to be a beta reader. It cost 99 credits, which is like so few credits. It provided some not bad stuff, but it's not really very detailed and actionable. It gives you ideas of what to look at, but not as good of not the best suggestions you could get. Ideas for sequels, 81 credits. Again, this is one you could run multiple times, and it doesn't matter if some of them are really low quality ideas. It's super cheap and it might help you. So if you're trying to use this something to generate ideas for whatever part of the story you're working on, you could write a plugin using this and it would be super cheap for users. When I asked it to rewrite the ending of the story, it gave me a completely uninspired summary paragraph for 66 credits. Again, I would not suggest this for your rewriting, even though it is the default model for plugins. And I believe it's also what we use, what's used for the free version of Quick Chat and Quick Edit. Now, GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K is something that is good for chapter work, medium cost, because it has a larger context window of up to 12,000 words of input plus output. So it's going to be able to read and remember a lot more. And when I asked it to extract characters from the text, it didn't do too bad of a job. We don't have a full list of characters here. So I'm not sure it wasn't the best results for it. It cost 1,759 credits for that. It did want to know what I wanted it to do next. For the beta reader question, it used 2,058 credits, and it gave me some suggestions based on characterization, dialogue, suspense building, foreshadowing, structure. This isn't bad advice. Since it does have, it uses more context, it's not bad for asking it to do some deeper tasks. It's not the smartest model there is, but it is relatively inexpensive, and you can get some decent feedback from it. With the brainstorming task, asking it to provide sequel ideas, it cost 1,935 credits, and it gave me some interesting sequel ideas here too. So again, the brainstorming, pretty good. And rewriting the end of the story, it cost 2,004 credits. And I mean, it's not horrible. I mean, the existing end of the story isn't spectacular to begin with. But we had a little did we know that this was all just the beginning of our adventures. We also have, with our mission accomplished, the three of us walk together towards the setting sun. So with GPT, any of the GPT 3.5s, you're going to want to give it a lot more detailed instructions because just asking it to rewrite or whatever, that's not enough for it to not just spit out a bunch of cliched output. Mixtral Instruct. So Mixtral Instruct is an innovative and inexpensive model that incorporates 8 expert submodels. And what I really like about Mixtral Instruct is that it allows for up to 24,000 words of input plus output. So for extracting a list of characters, it used 301 credits, and we get a pretty decent list of characters. The only thing it mixes up is that James is actually also, it's Professor James Moriarty is, they're the same person, but if you're writing your story, you would know when something like that occurs. And it does give context for who some of the characters are, so that's not too bad. Then when I asked it to be a beta reader, it used 330 credits, and it gave me a whole Dear Author letter, and it gave me some actionable advice about sensory details, and it pulled out the detail in the story about Mrs. Hudson's chili, internal thoughts, sentence structure. So it gives you some varied advice and feedback. So especially when it's so inexpensive to run, um, you can give it instructions and ask it to do complex tasks. And if it doesn't quite give you what you're looking for the first time, you can run it a couple of times and it's not going to be a problem. With the brainstorming tasks for the sequels, it used 313 credits, and we got some pretty decent sequel ideas. Again, I wouldn't use them exactly as written, but they would provide me some ideas for future stories. To rewrite the ending, now I it did a lot more than I asked it to do. For 566 credits, it rewrote the entire story for me at 2,790 words for only 566 credits. I have not had the time to compare and contrast the original version of the story and the rewrite it gave me, but it rewrote the whole thing for less than 1,000 credits. And it's really a matter of checking the quality for that, which I did not have time to do before class today. Mistral Medium, one of the newer models we have access to. It's the latest Mistral AI model. It's good at following instructions, medium cost, also has that large context window of up to 24,000 words of input and output. When I asked it to extract a list of characters from the text, it used 1,359 credits. It gave us a pretty good list of the characters. Again, it wasn't quite sure about James also being Professor Moriarty, but it did it did determine, well, this isn't completely accurate. Raj is kind of like teacher's pet. He really looks up to Professor Moriarty. And this model, Mistral Medium, thought that they were besties. So that was kind of funny. But otherwise, not bad for my list of characters. You're a beta reader who enjoys cozy mysteries. So in asking it to do the feedback task, it costs 1,728 credits, and it gave me specific suggestions for character development, pacing, dialogue, setting, foreshadowing, and emotional stakes. So it's not bad for doing feedback and analysis tasks, especially for the credits involved. In the brainstorming task, when I asked it for sequel ideas, it took 1,617 credits, and we've got some pretty decent ideas for, high school cozy mystery stuff here. I might actually use the Rise of the Student Union. The rewriting task, it used 1,528 credits. It literally ended with the end, which got me kind of amused. I got a little chuckle out of that. But it had some not bad ideas that I could incorporate when trying to rewrite the end of the story, which really does not end satisfactorily. So not bad at the rewriting task. Maybe you still have to edit it quite a bit, but you could run it multiple times to get multiple versions. Okay. All these GPT models with the numbers. GPT-4 1106 preview. It has high intelligence and medium high cost. It works with up to 90,000 words of input and 3,000 words of output. So this can read a lot of context back. It can give you up to 3,000 words of output. Oh, that's a phone call I've been waiting for, but I can't take that in the middle of class. So large context window, some output, and in the extracting list of characters task, it used 4,347 credits, which, considering compared to the other models that used fewer credits, while it did give a pretty accurate list of characters, I'm not sure it was worth doing such a basic task like extracting characters for that many credits. For the beta reader task, it used 5,859 credits, and it did give some detailed feedback on characters, plot and pacing, with the specific examples, dialogue, themes, settings, and overall impressions. So it's not bad at feedback and analysis. For the brainstorming task for the sequel ideas, it cost 5,433 credits. It gave me some interesting sequel ideas, but for brainstorming tasks, we can do that a lot cheaper. So I wouldn't use this model for brainstorming tasks, because they're just not that much better than the original, or than the ones that were less expensive. For the rewrite task, it cost 6,380 credits, and I I'm it's not a bad ending. It might be worth it to use this for rewriting tasks. So yeah, I'm sorry. I just kind of got to scrolling and forgot to move along because we've got stuff to cover. Okay, GPT-4 Turbo, high intelligence and medium high cost. It again works with up to 90,000 words of input and 3,000 words output. In the extraction task, it costs 4,480 credits. Now, while it did cost more credits than the less expensive models, it also provided some additional context about the characters it extracted, including the fact that Shirley is the main character and narrator, Professor Moriarty is the AP statistics teacher, Raj Patel was a classmate who was initially suspected of the theft, stuff like that. So if you're looking for detailed extraction tasks, GPT-4 Turbo is not a bad choice. For the beta reader task, it cost 6,436 credits. It had some interesting formatting for me, but that we're not going to be too concerned about the fact that it doesn't show up in bold like it's suggesting here. Um, it gives ideas for character development, pacing and structure, dialogue, themes and messages, settings and descriptions, and consistency and plausibility with specific details for how to address each of these things. I'm saying not bad for analysis and feedback tasks for the cost of 6,000 credits for our 3,000 word story. That's really not bad at all. That's some actionable advice. The brainstorming task, it costs 5,325 credits. Again, not bad ideas, but for brainstorming tasks, it depends on how detailed you would like them to get. These are a little more meaty because they're a little beefier than suggestions in the less expensive models, but that's going to be, your prerogative as to whether or not it's going to be worth using that for a brainstorming task. For the rewriting task, it cost 6,133 credits. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, this was actually this was some pretty good rewriting. Again, you're always going to want to edit rewrites or, initial writing that you get from the AI, but this is a pretty good basis for rewriting the end of the story. It's very satisfying. GPT-4o is the newest GPT model. We got access to this pretty quickly after it was released last week. It's described here as the hottest GPT-4 model, high intelligence and medium cost. It works with up to 180,000 words of input and 3,000 words of output. That's a huge context window. You could use this on a full story, assuming it doesn't give you an error, because sometimes that happens. As a reminder, as I did write in the instructions for some of these plugins, you are charged for all of the text that it reads as input, as well as the output of the plugin. So if you get a refusal for some reason, especially with the Claude models, you're still going to have to pay the amount of credits it took for it to read the text before it decides to refuse you. So that's something to keep in mind. For the extraction task with the new GPT-4o, used 2,441 credits, and we actually got a pretty robust character list here. James, Raj's best friend, indirectly mentioned as being close to Professor Moriarty. If this had character story Bible access, it would know that James is Professor Moriarty. But other than that, we've got some pretty good details about our characters here, and I would say this is a really good model for an extraction task like this. And 2,400 credits really is not that bad for what we asked it to do. For the beta reading task, it cost 3,418 credits, and it gave me a list of strengths, which is always good to start with, and then areas for improvement, with consistency and tone, character development, and clarifying plot points, show, don't tell. Got some weird markdown here, but we can delete that if it's too distracting to us. Balancing subplots, ending specific. It wants me to change up some dialogue tags. This is some pretty good feedback and analysis. So I'd say for those kind of tasks like feedback and analysis, 3,400 credits is pretty reasonable for the amount of input we gave it and what it spit back out. For the brainstorming task, it took 2,698 credits. Again, we got some decent ideas for sequel stories. And it's a fairly reasonable amount of credits. So not a bad choice necessarily. And the rewriting task cost 3,580 credits. And I like how we got some dialogue and other things and minimal cliches. So not too bad. It does, I mean, the story did have a little bit of the, ready for the next mystery thing because that's just the tone of the story. But GPT-4 is I'm pretty impressed with all of the different tasks I asked it to do. It's a pretty good all-around model to use for your plugins. So then there's GPT-4 0314. And this is high intelligence, high cost, may be less censored, works with up to 6,000 words. So the context window is not that large here. We don't have as much to work with. And it is more expensive. So I asked it to do the extraction task, and it cost 8,450 credits to give me an incomplete list that doesn't even list Shirley as the narrator and main character. I would not use this model for an extraction task. Because it just, first of all, it's way more expensive than other models that did the task well, and also it was not a complete list. So we can do much better than this. For the beta reader task, it cost 10,378 credits for this. Honestly, the quality of the feedback and analysis was not worth the amount of credits it costs to do that. I would not use this model to do any kind of analytical tasks for your pros. For the brainstorming, I'm just gonna, 9,521 credits. That's we could get sequel ideas and brainstorming for less than 200 credits using other models. It's really just not worth it here. Rewriting the end of the story, it cost 11,122 credits. It's not a horrible it's not a horrible ending. I would just, get this collective try paragraph, I'd forget it, but I really don't think it's worth the amount of credits it took. I'm not overly impressed with this model for its cost. I mean, yeah, it's just not worth the credit cost to use it. I would advise against it. We have better options now especially with GPT-4o. We could probably not use that anymore except for, supporting legacy plugins that already use it and the authors don't update it. So then there's plain old GPT-4, which is a high intelligence, high cost model. It works with up to 6,000 words of input plus output. So again, it's got the limited context, and it is on the more expensive side. It used 8,479 credits for the extraction task, and I'll give it this. It was the only one that picked up on the fact that James is Professor Moriarty's first name based on context. It did that, but if it was Story Bible aware, it would know that, and it's really not worth the credits for the extraction type of task. Beta reading, 10,459 credits. I mean, the feedback isn't isn't bad. But we got some better we got better feedback, more actionable stuff from GPT-4o, which was a lot less expensive. So, and the brainstorming, again, we don't need to spend 9,650 credits on brainstorming. Rewriting the ending, it costs 10,613 credits.
So
It's
this
not
is that
bad.
rewriting without story Bible information, so there's no genre or
Yep,
style
none of that.
prompting.
I could have, the way this plugin works, I could have copied and pasted the Storywrite information in, but I just wanted to see how it ran um, with with the story itself and nothing else.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic survey.
Yeah,
We're gonna use this for a long time.
yeah. So the the output you get from the rewriting task, you may or may not find it worth the credit usage. It really depends on how much instruction you give a plugin using GPT-4. But again, we have 4.0 now. So you might just want to shift that way. That's probably going to be my answer for most of these GPTs here. For GPT-4 32K, I used to use this more often for higher intelligence needs with larger context. It is the most expensive model. It works with up to 24,000 words of input plus output. Actually, I'm not sure if it's still the most expensive, but it says it is in the drop down here. Um,
It's
we'll
very
double check
expensive.
with,
Yeah, maybe even more so
oh yeah,
than Opus,
this
but
is
it
the
gets
most
up there.
expensive. So the character extraction, it cost me 25,002 credits to get me my list of 11 characters, including the entire lacrosse team. We could do that for 100 credits. So no, you're not going to use GPT for 32K for a simple task like that. Um, for the feedback task as the beta reader, it costs 30,072 credits. Um, I mean, the advice isn't off. It's just not worth the cost. We have better options. We didn't used to have better options. So, and the brainstorming task also, yeah, 27,366 credits. There is no need to spend this much on your plugins for a brainstorming task. The rewriting task, it cost, I was kind of, it was 30,000 credits exactly, which is a lot. I like the text. It's not worth 30,000 credits to me. Um, Again, use GPT-4o if you want a GPT-4 model. Mancer and Weaver. Um, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It's listed here, uncensored model, inexpensive, and roughly as smart as GPT 3.5. It works with up to 6,000 words of input and 400 words of output. Due to its restrictions, none of the tasks I asked it to perform really worked very well. I asked it to extract the characters, 2,227 credits. I mean, we got a list here, but we also, in the list, we have students at the high school and lunch lady, who is listed above as Mrs. Hudson, the cafe staff. Um, the beta reader task, it cost me 2,420 credits, and instead of beta reading, it started, rewriting. It created prose. Um, so that was pretty useless. SQL ideas, same thing. It cost 2,407 credits, and it did not give me SQL ideas. It gave me prose. Um, rewrite the end of the story to be more satisfying, 24 or 21 credits. And again, not what we asked for. It just cuts off at the end while not resolving the plot. I wouldn't recommend Mancer Weaver for pretty much any plugins at this point in time. Maybe there's a good use case. It just wasn't any of these. Okay, Mythomax. It's an uncensored model, inexpensive and known for rich descriptions and roleplay. It works with up to 3,000 words of input plus output. This is a much smaller context window. Because of that, it has some limited utility. 186 credits to extract characters from the text. It gave me a truncated list because it wasn't reading back my entire story. And it also spat back the instructions at the end of the output. For the beta reader task, it cost 201 credits. It gave me some generic feedback and analysis, but nothing actionable. SQL ideas, it used 193 credits. Nothing awe-inspiring, but also only 193 credits. Maybe if you provided it more detailed instructions, it might be a little better at that, but it appears that Mythomax is something you really need to hold its hand to let it know what you're looking for. The rewriting task, it costs 201 credits. It's not bad. I mean, if you want a cheap rewriting tool where you're not asking it specifically to like proofread or anything, this isn't bad. I obviously still make changes, but yeah, it's not bad with prose generation. So there are a couple of different Mistral models. Open Orca Mistral is one of them. It is an uncensored model, least expensive, it says. Not sure if that's first 7B model to beat all the other models under 30B. Works with up to 6,000 words of input plus output. So again, it's got limited context. The extraction task cost 168 credits. It had a weird order of extracting the characters. Not sure how it was determining that, because Shirley isn't first or last. And beta reader task cost 180 credits. This advice is a little too generic, not very helpful. Maybe with more detailed return instructions, it might do a better job. I wouldn't count on it. The sequel, the brainstorming task, 176 credits. It's not some, they're not bad ideas. And for 160 or 76 credits, you can just run it multiple times, because it doesn't cost very much for brainstorming. For the rewriting task, it costs 180 credits. We have our ending paragraph with the brighter, more inclusive future, and we're a little too inspiring at the end here. But it's not, it could be worse, and it didn't cost a lot of credits. So you'd have to give it guardrails for that too. There's the Open Hermes Mistral, which is uncensored, roughly as smart as GPT 3.5, and that very limited context of up to 3,000 words of input plus output. It extracted a truncated list of my characters for 83 credits. Beta reader, 94 credits. Surprisingly good feedback. There's not a lot of feedback, but it does have some decent suggestions here. So you could run an analysis or feedback plugin multiple times to get more results, or just give it more structured instructions for the type of feedback you want it to give, because it's just gonna cut off. um Brainstorming task, 92 credits. it you it's not bad. um it could do brainstorming tasks pretty well for the really inexpensive cost. Rewriting, that task costs 100 credits. um we've got some decent pros here. um it would need some editing, but it's not horrible. Oh, this wouldn't be bad for a rewriting plugin, especially if you give it more detailed instructions than I did. Next is Ouroboros. I know it's 5 o'clock. I did try to indicate on the plugin list, or the class listing on Luma, this was going to run until 5:30. I apologize to anybody who only had the hour. Um, I will I will have the recording up on YouTube. I was working on getting past sessions uploaded this morning, or I was going to, and then I was like, no, I need to do my class first. And yeah, so I'll be continuing that later. Ouroboros is an inexpensive Llama 2 70B base model. It also has the very limited 3,000 words of input plus output context. I was not impressed here. The extraction task used 291 credits, and it got my main character's name wrong. Her name is Shirley Locke, not Shirley Holmes. And I double checked just to make sure nothing slipped into the prose to even suggest that Sherlock Holmes somewhere, and Holmes did not appear anywhere in my in my prose. So it made that up on its own. I do not recommend it for an extraction task because it's gonna make stuff up. The beta reading task costs 367 credits. It asks some good questions. It identified plot holes. It's it's not bad for an inexpensive feedback or analysis plugin. But you're gonna want to give it more detailed instructions. Um, the brainstorming task, it's pretty thorough um, with its suggestions, but I I I'm glad I wrote this here because I would have forgotten. It completely changed established character names. The principal's name is already determined in the story. Mrs. Hudson is the lunch lady, and they gave us another Miss Hudson just because Sherlock Holmes is the theme we're going with here. So it it went off the rails here. Same with the rewriting task. It cost 528 credits, but it wrote all of this text, and um it it was just hallucinating. So I would not recommend Ouroboros for rewriting tasks unless you're giving it much more specific instructions. Um, which is weird because doesn't it doesn't work that weirdly when I'm generating prose in my projects. So I don't know. Goliath, one of the largest open models, medium cost, works with, again, limited context window of 3,000 words input plus output. Um, you sweet summer child. So for the character extraction task, it costs 2,045 credits for this. While it does provide some details about the characters it extracted, it is not a complete list. So for for the cost, really not worth it. for the extraction task. There were other models that were far better at this for fewer credits. For the beta reader task, it costs 2,329 credits, and it cut off at the end, where it was, giving me feedback about the conclusion of the story. The feedback it gave me was not off base, although we did misspell Moriarty's name here. Um, so there are better models for beta reading and like feedback and analysis. For sequel generation, brainstorming task was 2,305 credits. We can do better. Um, although I kind of liked how it gave me like a starting paragraph instead of like a summary, like a synopsis of the sequel idea. But again, there were other plugins that did this better for less. The rewriting task costs 2,341 credits, and it cut off at the end, which, when you're asking for it to end the story in a more satisfying way, you don't really want it to cut off at the end. So you can do with that information what you will for the rewriting capabilities of Goliath. Gemini Pro is one of my favorite models to use. We don't have very helpful information about how much context you can use with Gemini Pro. It does not tell you in the drop down here in the plugin creation screen, but it usually does what I ask it to do pretty well. For the character extraction task, it cost 1,119 credits, and it gave me the list of characters broken into main characters and secondary characters and other characters mentioned. So the students and other characters who were mentioned but didn't appear in the story are in a separate category here. I'm gonna say that was pretty worth the 1,119 credits for this breakdown. For the feedback and analysis task, it costs 1,210 credits. It gave me a list of the strengths of the text, areas for improvement with pacing, clarity, showing versus telling, and redundancy. It wasn't very actionable information, but it's something where I would probably run it a second or third time um, to see if it gave me better feedback. I just wasn't rerunning. I wasn't rerunning prompts for the purposes of this class. Brainstorming sequel ideas. Um, yeah, you can use this, but I think I think some of the other models did it better for the brainstorming. But I do like some of these ideas here. Um, rewriting the rewriting task cost 1,194 credits. Um, I kind of like the pros here. We have to get rid of this sense of accomplishment and warm glow of justice served, but I like the pros it creates. Um, it could use more direction though, to give better results when you're writing your plugins. And then we have all the Claudes. Claude, Claude, Claude. Claude 2.0, not to be confused with Claude 2. Highly intelligent with medium high cost, favorite for prose quality. I believe is this best prose when using write or chapter generator or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah, Claude 2 is best pros.
Okay, that's what I thought. It has context window of up to 75,000 words of input plus output. When I asked it to do the character extraction task, it cost 3,345 credits. For that number of credits, I would say that the other plugins the less expensive plugins did better. For the feedback and analysis beta reading task, it costs 4,170 credits. It gives some decent feedback here. But nothing overwhelmingly like, oh my God, this is what I would always just choose to use for feedback or analysis. In the brainstorming task, 3,961 credits. Again, we can do this much cheaper. And for brainstorming, sometimes you just want more ideas. Um, it did come up with some interesting suggestions, though. Um, so, I mean, there's always that. For the rewriting task, 4,136 credits. Um, it's kind of a satisfying ending to the story. So it could be worth it if you like the way it writes its prose, um, with some adjustments there. Now this is just Claude 2 without 2.0. More censored, highly intelligent with medium high cost, and also has the 75,000 words of context. For character extraction, it used 3,345 credits, and we got a pretty accurate list with the exception of it not knowing that James was Professor Moriarty, but we've discussed that already. Overall, you can use cheaper models and get better quality extracted data from your prose. For the beta reading task, feedback and analysis, we got 3,994 credits. Um, it gives some decent feedback. Not the best, but for the amount of credits it used, it's not horrible. Um, the brainstorming task, 3,874 credits. These aren't horrible ideas, except that, I mean, Irene is already in the story, so maybe not the best here. We already have Irene in the story. She's not a new student transferring to the school. For the rewriting task, it costs 4,357 credits. And here we have inventing new characters who hadn't previously been mentioned in the story. We didn't have a vice principal in the story. So you'd want to give more detailed instructions to your plugin if you want to use it for rewriting tasks. Okay, and the Claude 3s. These are the newest Claudes and the smartest Claudes. Claude 3 Opus is the most expensive of the new Claudes. Can be more censored. It's if you have any kind of mature themes in your prose that you're going to be running this on, you're not going to want to run Opus because you're going to get charged for reading all of the input that you give the plugin, and then it's just going to refuse to do anything, and you're out all those credits. So there are some plugin authors who have found ways to make Claude less reserved. But you have to go out of your way to take the did I not? Dang it. Okay, so I did not paste, so it's gone. Okay. I don't have I don't have the list of credits for running Claude 3 Opus. Um, it was really good at the rewriting task. Um, it gave some pretty robust suggestions for sequel ideas, but
It
we
might.
definitely we could
Credits
definitely
pricing
do it
aren't in the
cheaper.
history.
I think I might have gone too far. Yeah, I can't scroll back any further than that with Sonnet.
It's about 10 times the price of Sonnet. So
Yeah.
2,000
Uh,
for Sonnet, it'd probably be 20,000 for Opus.
yeah. So we're really not going to want to use it for the brainstorming task. It gave some decent information and feedback for the beta reading task. Not sure if it would be worth the number of credits it cost. And definitely you're not gonna want to spend all of the credits for it to do a simple extraction of characters task. It it it's a good list of characters. It didn't include James as a separate person from Professor Moriarty, but really not going to be worth the additional cost. Um, Sonnet. I like Sonnet. It's a nice, um, pretty decent cost for the amount of intelligence you get for it. Um, can be more censored again, highly intelligent with medium cost, works with up to 175,000 words of input. Um, our character extraction task was um, pretty good for 1,686 credits. Not bad. We did have some better results with other models that gave a little bit of description of the characters, but again, this did what we asked it to, so that's not bad. For the feedback and analysis task, it cost 2,574 credits. Um, it listed the strengths and then areas for improvement. Um, it's a little more generic and not as specific as I'd prefer feedback to be, but if you give it better instructions than just you're a beta reader, give me feedback, you'll probably get better results from an analysis plugin. For the brainstorming task, 2,061 credits. Um, Again, these aren't bad. We can we can get more bang for our buck with less expensive models for brainstorming, but at least we get names and stuff right from the existing story carrying forward into the sequel ideas. For the rewriting task, it costs 2,479 credits, and um, actually, except for this whole filled with determination thing down here, I like how it ended the story with the sentence "I'm counting on it." So I'm pretty fond of this prose for the rewriting task. So Sonnet's not a bad choice for that kind of plugin work. And then we have Haiku, which is the least expensive of the Claude 3s. Highly intelligent with medium cost, also works with up to 175,000 words of input. That's a large context window. Um, the character extraction task, we got a really good list of characters here. Again, it did not add James as a separate character. 279 credits. It did what we asked it to do, and gave us a list of characters. Um, so not a bad choice for extraction tasks. The beta reading task, it costs 383 credits. Um, First, I want to commend you on creating such a compelling protagonist in Shirley. I think that's a little overly enthusiastic. Um, I'd want to give Haiku more guardrails and guidelines about how to craft any type of analysis or feedback. Um, because this is not an easy format to read for one thing. Um, and it could do with some more hand holding for that. The brainstorming task, 361 credits. These are pretty robust suggestions for sequels, and specifically naming existing characters from the story and things that happened in it. I'd say this is a pretty good, Haiku is a pretty good choice for brainstorming activities. The rewriting task, 357 credits. Eh, it's not a horrible way to end the story, but I liked Sonnet much better. You could use it if you want to try rewriting things multiple times. You could do it with like a 3-card output plugin to give plugin users more options while reading the input only once. That wouldn't be a bad way to do that. So that was a lot of information on all of the different models that we have access to as plugin authors at the current time here on Sudowrite. I will be putting together this information into a Notion document, which I will provide to everybody when I upload the video to YouTube. I'm a little behind on that. I have my video software open right now so that I can continue getting the videos of previous classes ready for the YouTube channel. I thank you for coming to class this week. It was a long one, an hour and a half. We got started a little bit late, but I appreciate you being here. And I will answer some questions after I stop the recording. So thank you for being here, and I hope to see you next class.